進まれるのですね。せめて私だ。
FromSoftware have been around 38 years and have developed 69 video games. You'd probably know of them from Demon's Souls, the Dark Souls series, and Elden Ring, even Bloodborne. Like Bloodborne, Sekiro sort of stands on its own with its lore and game model to a certain extent. Released in 2019 to mixed opinions from hardcore FromSoftware fans, but as the years have gone past, this game has aged brilliantly, and I think now we can all agree that it has similar status and greatness to those other mentioned FromSoftware games. This video is going to be about some of the off-kilter extracurricular content within the game, why it's so different to other Souls games, and how that combat model, despite its minor changes, has massive impacts on the minute-to-minute fighting. I recently produced a video about Red Dead Redemption 2's extra content around that campaign, so if you avoid any main story quests or side quests, there's still a hell of a lot to do within that open world. Sekiro, against Elden Ring, appears extremely linear, and the level design is purposely pointing towards keeping the player very much on a linear progression. Some people, and I was guilty of this myself, really push to finish the game in the first year of launch. See every boss, get to the end, maybe have a look at some of the harder modes, New Game Plus. Like Red Dead Redemption 2, there is so much more off the main quest story and secret areas and bosses within Sekiro than I initially realised. It had a renaissance with everybody, also with the 9th gen update. Loads of people went back to this because we had a 60 frame per second 4K patch come in, and it just gave the whole game a new lick of paint. I am keen to hit home the point that this game is an essential for any Souls-like or Souls lover, even if you're into cool third-person action ARPGs. Is this the most accessible Souls game? It actually could be. Because of this winch mechanic, the maneuverability, and how the stealth works, it's very much focused on some of the more traditional models we see in other third-person sword games. That stamina bar was completely dropped, and the whole system brought in around deflection and poise. You only ever had 2 bars on screen that you needed to worry about. That would be the yellow enemy twangometer and your own, which is counting against how often you can block. Other Souls games would include a depletion of the stamina bar if you were delivering punishment, but with Sekiro you can go hell for leather and nothing will say that's enough now, you're knackered. For me, this does a number of things. It frees up my brain to completely concentrate on what's happening between me and the person I'm fighting. I'm not looking up to the top left to see whether I'm going to die in a minute. It also makes me feel really reckless and able to take loads of risks and enjoy the deflect mechanics, which looks amazing. The animations they switch out very much keeps you engaged. And talking about the extra content point, you guys might know this section of the game. There's that massive drunken mini boss guy, and you also get an NPC helper to go and fight him. I completely ran past all of this when I looked at it on base level PlayStation 4. Back to that combat very briefly. The button layout is quite unique also, giving stealth a click in of the analog stick and then run being circle. That's also tied in with your dodge. Now this kind of works because you can bleed that into avoiding and then running around an enemy or getting to circle them at high speed. Making that muscle memory switch back to the control layout of Sekiro is a little bit of a challenge after playing loads of other Souls-likes, but once that penny drops and you remember all of the movesets and the flow of the game, it swiftly becomes one of the more intuitive and enjoyable Souls-like combat systems. On the face of it, when I first looked at this new combat on launch, I was playing Nier, and I was immediately like, this is simplified, this is dumbed down, this is not Dark Souls 3. But once you realise the message, which I essentially think is all about that combat exchange, block, deflect, wear down an enemy, It feels far more tense and malleable once you scratch that surface and realise some of the meta behind those yellow bars. I reviewed a game called Lords of the Fallen, and it did quite well on the channel. I got lucky, but some of the comments were about the enemy variants and the lack of variety with different creatures and things that they were encountering throughout the levels. Now, Lords of the Fallen has got 70 different types of enemy in it, which I was quite amazed at. That bloke nearly killed me. I didn't realise that he wasn't dead. Back to my point, Sekiro's variants are unbelievable and they're so unique to where you are in the video game, and you might even come across stuff you've never seen before, even if you'd managed to do that entire campaign. Headless in his cave with all that weird slowdown and atmospherics. It's one of the more terrifying fights, I think. The darkened cave, the immediate change in aesthetic. You get this feeling like you are so not supposed to be here. The unique and individual death animations attached to what you're fighting or what you're fighting with or how you've managed the kill is excellent. It's almost on a reroll, and that brings me on to the alt weapon switch out, the thing that you would use other than your sword. It might be the shurikens, it might be the fireworks. I wanted to talk about that umbrella. You'll notice I barely use any attachments because I really love the sword on sword gameplay. I feel that umbrella's a little bit OP. I'm a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to that combat model. You can actually knock this guy off, but I'm thinking, no, I want to do a toe-to-toe, see how much he's actually got, and my god, it is quite a grueling fight. But its location up on this bridge, with that dissipation on the wood and the surrounding height, it all feels very well orchestrated. The last time I got this sort of feeling with this genre of video game was Rise of the Ronin, which I thoroughly recommend you look at if you enjoy Sekiro's combat model. It's kind of the nearest thing I've found from other studios, and that's Team Ninja. They have big, awesome heritage with making great Souls-likes. I will link. I was here for about 45 minutes, just didn't bore of it. I was pretending that it was Siegfried's dad, and there was some beef from Soul Calibur 1. Getting to him is a bit of a headache. You've got to jump over these little dudes on this bridge. But once you're there, you're there. And the clang, the fact that he's got this big armor set on, all I need to do is get one of those red dots on him and it's over. Getting that yellow meter up, chipping away at him, it's super fun. I think we need to have the chat about craftsmanship within video game construction. I see none in Western video game development. I'm joking, of course, there's great studios out there still, but my point being, the Japanese ethic, and this doesn't just surround video game development, it's the whole work ethos over there, is that you give 110%. You don't submit something unless you are entirely satisfied. That's the best goddamn thing you can do, because these guys love the industry. They even created it in the first place. And I think some Western developers, they need to remember that again. A lot of them get games out just to make a date, make a time, live service. It's all slapped together. Only when you start playing FromSoftware games and some of the Southern Korean developers now that you realize the passion for perfection within the visuals and the gameplay. And that doesn't stop at FromSoftware. Capcom have had an almost impeccable resume during this very rocky political time that a lot of Western developers have fallen foul of. Japanese studios just tend to manage to rise above it, and I respect them for that. This guy with the pot though, you know that giant right at the start of the game is kind of considered like first, second boss. He's got that thing around his neck. I thought that guy with the pot was going to have an identical moveset. He's just dressed up with a different visual aesthetic, but no, he's got his own individual complete attack pattern. It's unreal. And having actual stealth and detection in a Souls-like game or a FromSoftware game is very cool as well. You think about other Souls-likes. The Surge 2 doesn't even have a crouch button. It's not even about getting up behind enemies and getting that nice backstab. This was embedded into the Sekiro model. Those zombie dudes in the cave, completely unique attack pattern and animation when they do actually get hold of you. They suck all of your blood out and have you in this horrendous grip. And of course the lighting and all this underground tension, the water, swimming around, finding secret caverns. It was a lot larger than I initially realized. This video is going to be called, you know, why Sekiro is essential. But I also want people to go back to the game and maybe explore a little bit off that beaten track than they managed on their first playthrough, because the rewards are absolutely amazing. I'm still really dodgy on the Mekong counter muscle memory and just crap myself that I'm not going to get it, so I always go to the jump. And the aerial section of that combat and using the winch on bosses was woven in particularly well. Fighting that guy on the horse was far more dramatic, being able to winch in and winch out, the way that he clattered around that arena. That could be one of the finest early boss fights in the entire game. I do want to talk about the dragon rot thing really quickly, because I do and don't like it. What happens is if you keep dying, people in the village contract this disease, and then you have to apply an item to then reverse the process, and you can end up having everybody, all of the NPCs with dragon rot. You're fine, the guilt's there, but finishing the game with or without any of these people infected doesn't really change much. It does go towards your unseen aid, but I just found myself completely forgetting about it all the time. I also think, and there is nothing at all to confirm this whatsoever, but there could well be a sequel coming out with this game. I think it performed really well on sales, far above what From thought it would. The name, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, makes me feel like that's a subtitle, and it could be switched out for a following sequel. Not saying Shadows Die 3 times, but you know what I mean. I think they've kept that so that they could variant on it to push out a newer game. I'm making no promises. Back to that unique enemy thing, and that also applies to some of the attack music. These monks have got their own chanting song going on in the background here. I think that's amazing. I was also thinking about top PlayStation 4 games, and Sekiro is certainly in the top 3. I was thinking about Mad Max, you know, the one from the film with the car, and maybe God of War, but I'm missing something. There's another exclusive. Help me. Yeah, it's Metal Gear 5, but it's not exclusive anymore. But yeah, that's the other one, and Bloodborne. So I think in conclusion, why Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is an essential PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 game to own and play is that it's doing its own thing with enough confidence to nearly rival some of the other top FromSoftware games that are out. And that was one hell of a thing to achieve as a standalone IP. As of September 2023, Sekiro sold over 10 million units. So if you work out that each one of them cost 50 British pounds, it's quite a lot of money that they made for that software house. They would be crazy not to come out with a sequel. An actual 9th gen Sekiro sequel, just take my money. I think after the Night Rain, Elden Ring things out of the way, we'll have a bit of a clearer idea about what they're going to be doing for 2026. I was, of course, your favourite Souls-like lover, Couch Coop. I will see you down there.
to lay bare the path to salvation for my wayward brothers and sisters, so we may walk it together, and to strike down all those who would see our will defied.